I'm an addict named Roger. Thank you. I needed that. Thank you. I needed that. I just want to take 1 minute to kind of like acknowledge one person that I don't think we really gave a whole lot of propers to, and that's to the chair of this convention, Dwayne W. L. Now let's get to business. You know, there's a reason why we're here, right? We're here because there's a problem with recovery, right? And you see, we can't do it by ourselves, so that's why it's a we thing, right? So I need a little help. I need a little bit of help. First things first, I need to give propers to my higher power, whom I choose to call God. I can't go no further unless I do that. You see, because I have no juice without God. All right? So I give propers to my higher power, whom I choose to call God. And from time to time, I need to let you know that I might be calling on God from time to time. Don't y'all get real upset with me, okay? Because this is what I need to do in order for me to get the proper juice, okay? So if I come off a little bit like I'm real in love with God, don't think that this is an endorsement that means that you've got to have the same kind of relationship with the higher power of your choice. This is just my way of acknowledging that I have a God in my life. And if it's all right with y'all, I want to be real free about that, okay? So can we do that? I want no trouble. One more thing. One of the things that has been a problem in Narcotics Anonymous and the greater society from which we come has been the concept of unity. You know, and this is a celebration of unity, all right? You know, because what I'm trying to say to you is like, you know, one of the issues that I dealt with early on in Narcotics Anonymous was the fact that I come from a world which there's a lot of divisions and a lot of differences, where we look at each other across the way and we start like having fear and doubt and insecurity. And I got a lot of that I'm going to talk about tonight. But the first things first I want to do is I want to just ask you to stand up and give the person right next to you a real heartfelt hug and tell them that it's going to be all right. All right? Could you do that? Once again, I'm an addict named Roger. Thank you, I needed that. I needed to know that we was all in here on the same accord, all right? And you know, when I get outside of myself and I hug another person, sometimes the person I really don't even know. Sometimes the joker that I already done judged, criticized in my mind, but I look past all the differences and give them a hug anyway. That's the true spirit of Narcotics Anonymous. And I really thank you for exemplifying that spirit through this big room. You know, I'm real grateful to the Outer Limits area of Narcotics Anonymous because you're allowing me to do something that I dreamed about doing all my life, all right? I mean, it took me 46 years of a whole lot of pain and misery to get to this point where I am right now. And I'm real grateful to have it. You know, I mean, this is a recovery hit that I'm giving. You know, it's like the first time that I've had the opportunity to go out of town and be a main speaker, the very first time. But, you know, I feel like I'm perfectly ready, all right? Because, you see, I have a relationship with a God of my understanding. I work steps and traditions to the best of my ability in my life. And I attend meetings and I do a lot of the things that y'all suggest. So I know that I've been in preparation for just this moment, all right? So I don't have no fear for what I'm going to say. You know, all I want to say right now is that, you know, it's real important that I kind of like get some of the preliminaries out of the way. All right? So, like, you know, a couple of things that I like to do is I like to kind of like let you know where I come from. All right? One of the things I like to do is kind of let you know that I come from the recovery is possible area of Narcotics Anonymous. The recovery is possible area. That's in Rochester, New York. And these are some of my dogs over here. So, some of the crew that came down, it's a long ride. A long ride from Rochester to Virginia Beach. But they came down so that they could support an addict. You know, and that's the spirit of Narcotics Anonymous too. Because in Outer Limits, you know a little bit about driving long distances to support an addict. You all right? So this is just the Narcotics Anonymous spirit, and our basic text talks a lot about that. Okay, so I just want to thank them, and I want to let you know that I come from the Be There or Be Square meeting of Narcotics Anonymous. That's my home group. And I have a home group because it was suggested to get a home group. All right? And we meet on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. If you ever happen to be in Rochester, please come down. Please come down, help us recover, and let us love you a little bit. All right? Because that's what we like to do up in there. All right? Now, that's some of that side the way. I need to kind of like go ahead and kind of let you know a little bit about my clean time. Not so much because I'm boasting, but a little bit. All right? All right with that. A little bit. I got an ego. You know, I had to keep it under close control because my God of my understanding really can't function well if I let it go. But the bottom line is that I celebrate our anniversary 6/3/87. Let's add back 11 years and some months. All right? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I need to let you know that those 11 years have been beautiful. Recovery is wonderful, isn't it? Isn't Narcotics Anonymous a wonderful program? Save me from me. All right? All right, so I just want to let you know that I'm real grateful to have it. You know, because a lot of people like get real caught up with that clean time thing. You know, clean time don't equal recovery. But you got to get some clean time. You got to have some clean time to recover. And I'm here to tell you that it's, if it don't equal recovery, that is a real important part of recovery. It's a part of our basic text that says, you know, clean time must come first. All right? So we got to get some clean time before we can get to the recovery part of this process. You know, so like I'm real grateful to have the clean time I got. And I'm real grateful to have the people in my life, the relationships in my life that I have. And there's some issues that I need to talk about as we go on with this process that I'm going to try to like ease my way into. But, you know, I want to like kind of like take this time to kind of like let you know a little bit about where I come from. You know, it's real important for me to kind of like give you some sense of the little boy. All right? And I ain't trying to get real psychological about this, but I believe that it's important that y'all know what kind of foundation created the addict in me, okay? That motivated and stimulated me to do the things I did. All right? Okay, so first and foremost, I want to let you know that as a little boy, I was real insecure. I had some symptoms of this disease that they call the generally negative outlook on life. All right? Can anybody relate to the generally negative outlook on life? Could you relate to the fact that you didn't feel good for some reason and didn't know why? All right? Didn't know why. All I knew is there was something wrong. You know what I was thinking? I was sure that it was just because I wasn't getting enough of something. All right? Because so, and I want to say something to Gary. Gary, I love you, man. You gave me a gift last night, the gift of humor. You know, and it's one of the ones that I struggle with because, you see, I tend to think about recovery as a serious thing. And it comes back all the way from when I was a kid. But last night you showed me that there's a human component to recovery that I need to kind of like take another look at, and I want to thank you for that. All right? While I'm thinking, people, I'm going to thank all the speakers that spoke this weekend because we've had a truly marvelous weekend of speakers. And if anybody up in here didn't get fed spiritually, it's because you didn't want nothing to eat. All right? But it was all here. It was all here. Programming, whoever they are, did a wonderful job. And I think y'all can look at this man right here, Billy W., and his team for all the work that was done. But let's give him a round of applause, too. And the reason why I say all that is because sometimes being the speaker, you know, that comes after a lot of the other speakers, you know, I've heard this said before, and I just want to kind of like take an opportunity to, you know, repeat it, is that sometimes we can draft off of some of the spirituality that has been expressed all day long. You know, and that's what I'm going to attempt to do today is to draft off some of all the beautiful stuff that I've heard all day long. I've been to a lot of workshops. You know, and I did a lot of feeding spiritually. And I really want to kind of like, you know, just kind of like put an overview on a lot of that stuff that I heard today. But first I need to tell you about this little kid, and there was this little kid, you know, that wasn't very comfortable in his own skin. I was born in 52, and that was, you know, like early on in this country's history. I look upon it kind of like as compared to when Narcotics Anonymous came into being in 1953. So I kind of like relate to, you know, the early days of this program. Because there was a process into what made me to who I am, and it was a process of what made Narcotics Anonymous what it is, and I'm real glad to see that we came together the way we did 11 years ago in some months. But what the point I'm trying to make is that I was born into a process where there was a lot of things going on in the world in which I lived. You know, and there was a lot of things going on in the family in which I live. I'm not here to tell y'all nothing about no dysfunctional family. You know, I believe that they exist. I just don't believe that they was the reason for my disease. I believe that I had a situation that was going to manifest itself one way or the other, no difference what was going on around me. All right? Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that I had a family that was pretty cool, really. My family was a mother and a father. That's a good start. Mother and a father. Loving and caring. I mean, we didn't do a whole lot of that. And I heard Gary talk about this last night. They didn't do a whole lot of that. I love you. No, I don't think I never heard that. They didn't do a whole lot of kissing and hugging. Nope, didn't get none of that neither. But they did the best they could. And you know, and that's all we ever ask for in this program is that you just do the best you can. You know, and that's all. There ain't no perfection up in here. So ain't no use in us trying to become no perfect addict. You know, perfect recovery don't exist unless you're talking about the day when they bury us in the ground. Hey, if they bury me clean, I consider that a pretty close to perfection move. Okay? So today, I'm not getting caught up in none of that stuff. So what I want to do is say that it's like I was having a lot of trouble. You know, I was having a lot of trouble. You know, early on, and I started kind of like doing some things that I learned later on was because I had a disease called addiction, and I'm gonna take this opportunity to pray. Because you see, for me, prayer is a real important part of my process, and I'm about to blow past it, and it invites God into the process. I need to do a third step prayer saying, God, take my will and my life. Guide me in my recovery. Show me how to live. I need to move quickly to the 11th step prayer and say, grant me knowledge of your will for me and the power to carry out. See, because what happens then is I start turning it over. And then when I get to this service prayer and sharing ain't nothing except another level of service. Being an addict and just staying clean is a level of service. So don't get me wrong. But sharing is another level of service. I said, God, grant me knowledge that I might share according to your divine precepts. Instill in me a sense of your purpose. Make me a servant of your will. And grant me a bond of selflessness. It ain't a selfish program. It's not a selfish program. I don't know where we got that from. All right? Because it ain't no me, it ain't no you, it ain't no you, it ain't no me. All right? That's one of the premises of this program, and that I need you. In order that no addict, and this is where the divisions tend to come in. No black addict, no white addict, no HIV positive addict, no HIV negative addict, no suburban addict, no urban addict, no male addict, no female addict, no ugly addict, no white addict. Because see, I have a real problem when somebody use the word ugly. I don't know why I get all upset, you know. But the key is that no addict need die from the horrors of addiction. And those are the prayers I pray to kind of like get outside of myself and to kind of like let God back in charge. Now, I can go on. I want to say that, you know, I was having trouble as a kid, and the trouble started from, you know, just this generally negative outlook, but it branched into many other areas. And I want to run past this here area because it's real painful. You know, it's real painful, but it's a part of who I am, and I need to qualify. You know, part of the things that I needed to do early on was I got in touch with the fact that, I didn't seem to fit in. I didn't really like the place I fit into my family. All right? It seemed to me like, you know, it was like a lot of things going on, and like my brother and my sister was getting more attention than I was. You know? I quickly did some things that kind of like put me in the spotlight, but what I really want to say is that I never seemed like I fit into that situation. And that seemed to be my lot in life. As time went on, I never seemed to fit into society as a whole. I had a lot of tools. I was an intelligent young man. I had a whole lot of sense. And I had a whole lot of desire to be the best I could be. I was trying to be, you know, everything my mother and father wanted me to be. And I wound up being none of the things they wanted me to be. That was a terrible burden. And I know y'all can relate to what I'm saying. You know, when you want to be all that you can be, and you wind up being nothing that you wanted to be. And, you know, and what I did was I folded all that stuff inside. And I just kept a lid on it because, you see, I grew up in the age when you didn't talk about your problems. All right? I mean, when it was considered not cool to be airing your dirty laundry. All right? Especially if you're a man. All right? Because, you see, little boys don't cry. And men certainly don't cry. And, you know, and I got a lot of that bullshit, okay? I got a lot of that there early on, and, you know, it messed me up. And I get real upset about that because, you see, I know today that I have a right to my feelings. My feelings make me who I am. So today, just for today, if I like cry a little bit, it's going to be all right. All right? And I need to know, you know, from all of y'all out there that it's going to be all right because, you see, you might want to cry a little bit too, and it's going to be all right for you too. You know, and today I'm starting to live and learn that these are the things that I need to focus on. The areas that I struggle with the most. And my feelings is high on the list. Okay? So like what I want to do is I want to say that as a little boy, I had no way of outletting none of this stuff. I was in a major dilemma that I didn't know how to deal with. The basic text talks about it. It says stuff like we had our disease manifested itself in antisocial behavior. It said it made the diagnosis detection difficult. It was very difficult to figure out what was wrong. I kind of like labeled it a few things, but none of the things that I labeled it seemed to really fit. You know, so some of my ways of dealing with it is I isolated. You know, early on I learned how to isolate. I used to go off behind the big potbelly stove, and I used to like chill. I used to read books. You know, I was a great reader. I don't know if anybody can relate to, you know, like fantasy. Yeah? Can you relate? Can you relate to where you got to like go off into your mind or go off into books? And today we go off into TV, cable vision, you know, and then we let the TV watch us. Okay, y'all can relate. And I'm talking about where fantasy becomes a way of life. I mean, like, I didn't like the hand I had been dealt, so I was, like, willing to kind of, like, play off into somebody else's world, okay? And so I read a lot, and I read obsessively and compulsively. Does that name, do those two names ring any bells? I'm talking about as a little kid, obsessively and compulsively. And, you know, it was, like, all good, because, you know, you're supposed to read. Reading is good. Reading is fundamental, you know, right? Right? So the bottom line is that it was nothing wrong. Just like it's not nothing wrong with a whole lot of the things that addicts do. But if we do it obsessively and compulsively, it becomes a problem. All right? And early on, I had some of those obsessive and compulsive disorders. All right? Now today we call those mental disorders, right? All right? So if we would mess around and talk about insanity up in here, we wouldn't be way off base. Okay? So I'm talking about early on. And I wanna kind of like say that the disease in my life, it progressed. It got worse and worse and worse. We describe this disease in three ways. We talk about it's progressive, incurable, and fatal. All right? Incurable means it ain't going nowhere. All right? It don't make no difference what we do. All right? I mean, NA ain't going to make it go nowhere. God ain't going to make it go nowhere. We got this. You know, there's a few diseases that are incurable, and we learn to live with them and treat them on a daily basis, and that's what we need to do with this one. The idea about the fatal is that without treatment, it will kill us. All right, I mean, I'm not just talking about, you know, like spiritually dead either. I'm not just talking about mentally dead either. I'm talking about like 6 foot under dead, all right? It will kill us, and we see that happening all the time. We've got loved ones that have died, you know, due to this disease or some manifestation of this disease. You know, the big disease with the little name is oftentimes manifested through this disease, you know? So I don't play with this disease. I have a lot of respect for it. You know, this disease has done some mighty powerful things in my life. And it has made me into a person I never wanted to be. So I have to respect it. So I just want to tell you about the little boy. And the little boy was like growing up fast, trying to find ways to deal with this thing that he didn't even know he had. See, because early on, I learned things about denial. You know, I learned things about pretending as if everything was okay when there was nothing okay. Okay? I learned things like keeping secrets. Okay? I learned things like isolating. I learned things like, like pretending. I learned things like fantasy. Fantasy was like my first drug of choice. You know? I mean, I really like fantasy. I like Superman. Superman seemed to be like a cool dude, you know? Like, anybody you got bullets bouncing off their chest, man, they can jump over buildings with one single bound. They can fly through the air with the greatest of ease. I liked it that, you know? And it seemed to me like it would be so cool if I could be Superman. You know? I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, it was like, I like the idea right now. You know? I like it now. Yeah. I'm still sick. All right? But the bottom line is that fantasy has been a drug of choice for me for a long time. You know, and once again, put in its proper context, it's called creativity. Put in its proper context, it's called artistic ability. All right? So what we're talking about is sometimes our character defects, when taken to an extreme, can create problems in our lives. So I don't want you to kind of get away with the idea that everything we do is wrong. You know, it's just how we do it and how much we do it. I don't think sex is wrong. Do y'all? No. Oh, but we can mess it up, can't we? All right? Just remember obsession and compulsion. All right? Oh yeah, we tapped the vein there, didn't we? Yeah. We better go back and talk about that some more later. All I want to say is that I was a little kid trying hard to deal with the life and the hand in which I had been dealt, and I didn't like the way I felt. I had a lot of feelings that I couldn't talk to nobody about it. Therapist wasn't working in my life. I ain't had no therapist. I had my mama and my daddy. You know, and we didn't talk about stuff like that. You know, we talked about getting good grades. And we talked about, you know, singing loud in the choir. And we talked about being a good boy. And that's what I did to the best of my ability. But I had a disease that was trying to manifest itself, and it was saying, get one more. All right? And I want to speed forward. I want to fast forward to the point where I lost a lot of things. Because addiction is something about addiction that just, it makes you lose a lot. All right? So I want to tell you, I want to run down through the list of things I lost. I was going to college, and, you know, and like I had just started to kind of like let my disease manifest a little bit. I was doing a little alcohol thing. You know, alcohol can be kind of like a gateway drug. They say it's okay. You know, they say it's okay. You know, happy hour time, you know, like this bud's for you. You know, social acceptability was built into the alcohol thing. So the deal was is that, you know, I needed some things. I needed some courage. I needed some ability to kind of like deal with members of the opposite sex. I was growing up. I was in that age of life we call puberty. All right? I was in that age of life that we call adolescence. I was in that age of life when there was hormones raging. And I was trying hard to deal with that deal, along with the fact that I had a disease called addiction. And I was trying to deal with the fact that I was a very shy young man, and I had a whole lot of mental roadblocks to me reaching out to members of the opposite sex. Okay? So I wanted to kind of like be this lover boy. I wanted to kind of like be the hip-slicking cool dude. I kind of wanted to be all those things that I imagined in my mind. I wanted to be like that joker that I see that was getting all the women. As a matter of fact, I really wanted to be a pimp. All right? I'm going to just tell you. I really wanted to be a pimp because it seemed to me like they had the life. They had all the women. They had the fancy cars. They had the gators. They had the nice clothes. And they had that savoir-faire. They had that ability to carry themselves in a way in which men and women both respected. Can you see why I had heroes that was like out there? You know, these were the kind of people that I saw that had what I wanted. Okay? So I'm this little pimple-faced, dark-skinned, glasses wearing. I wanted to be 6 foot tall. I never quite made it. I had problems that seemed to me to kind of like be a detriment to the dreams that I had. So when I wanted to ask the young lady for a dance, all I could think is that I had pictures in my mind like, she's going to laugh at me. I'm going to have to walk all the way across this here room, and she's going to tell me, no, I'm not dancing with you, ugly. Or something similar to that, you know? And so it made it real difficult until I had that liquid drug called alcohol. And let me tell you, boy, when I tried that, my buddies told me, they said, look, you're having some problems. This will help. And you know, just like all the rest of my manifestations, it worked for a while. All right? I took a drink. I didn't just take a drink from them. When I first started, I needed half a pint. All right? Because if one drink was going to make me sociable, I wanted to be real sociable. All right? All right? So I was drinking early on for a reason, though. I was trying to get past the fear and the doubt and the insecurity that was going on the inside. This stuff I couldn't talk about to nobody, but my buddies was helping me with it. Right? So the key is that it worked, and I was a whirling dervish on the dance floor. You know, I really liked dancing. And I got to a point where I could dance with the best of them. And I got to the point where I could talk to the best of them. Later on, when sex became part of my story, I got to the point where I could sex with the best of them. And I thought that the drugs was actually helping. Maybe on some level they was. I found out later on some level they would stop me from working on the level in which I wanted to work too. Found that out. That became my experience. We'll talk about that later. Y'all remind me, because I have a way of kind of like glossing over the things I don't like talking about. Anyway, what I want to say is that, like, you know, I was having a lot of trouble, you know, and I like to move past all this here to say that, you know, my disease progressed and it got worse and worse, and I got to a point where I was using 24/7, because you know how it is, and Gary said it last night, my drug of choice became more. I just wanted more of whatever made me feel good, you know, and that covered a wide range of experiences and substances, and I'm here to say that this program is not all about substances, and I'm real grateful for that. I'm real grateful that we have a marvelous first step that takes us to focus right off of a substance. You know, alcohol, I'm not powerless over alcohol. Nor am I powerless over narcotics, regardless of what the names say. I'm powerless over a disease called addiction that can wreak havoc in many areas of my life. All right? You know, we need to be watchful of that because, you see, we mess around and stop using drugs and alcohol, and we might mess around and think like it's okay. Everything's fine now, Daddy. You know, and the bottom line is that the process just got started. All right? And I might mess around and relax my guard and think that the disease is gone somewhere. But it's going to redouble its efforts to kind of like find another way to get in. And so, and I just I need to put that hit out there right now. That, you know, don't make no difference what happens. Make no difference what happens. Whatever you get out of this share that I said in there, you never have to use again. Clint said it, I'm going to say it again. We never have to use again. For no reason. You know, I feel a need to kind of like speak on one piece. I'm going to take a slight detour. And I do this from time to time because, hey, y'all ask me to share. You know? We got a lady here who's been very instrumental in my life. Her name is Kim, and she had some death in the family. And I just want to, you know, ask us to kind of like, you know, send up a prayer for Kim that, you know, that the death in her family, that she be able to get through it, and that we be able to kind of like help her through this weekend some kind of way. Now, I just want to acknowledge their fight right now because I have friends today that I love, and I pray for them. And I pray that they get through whatever they're going through. So, I need to get back to this little boy because I want to kind of like get done with this joker. Because really the hit is when we got to Narcotics Anonymous, and I hadn't gotten there yet. I had got to the point where I was starting to lose stuff. You know, I was starting to lose my family. I was starting to lose my dignity and self-respect. Let me say that first. I was starting to lose my dignity and self-respect, but that had been going all the time. I was starting to also lose the opportunities that life tends to offer us. Opportunities like college education. You know, I went to college, a very nice school, and I wasn't able to maintain. Because I'm here to tell you that drugging and drinking and doing a whole lot of things up to 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning is not conducive to good collegiate life. All right? I'm going to tell you something else, just in case y'all didn't figure this out for yourself, is that it's real hard to go to work every day if you are drugging and drinking all the time, too. All right? So that was right on the list of things I lost, too. I lost jobs, I lost good opportunities, I lost the love of family, and as time went on, I lost loved ones. And I see so many families sitting out here. I see so many men and women sitting out here, you know, and I got some pain in that area. I'm going to talk about that later, though. So the key is that I started losing things, and I started losing a lot of my dignity and self-respect, and I started feeling this hole in my gut start getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, because you see, this is the nature of this disease, is that it'll kill you from the inside and the outside. All right? You know, if the drugs don't kill you, surely the depression will. All right? And so the key is that I started feeling like I was an old man before I even got to 21. Okay? And I started having thoughts like suicide. I want out. I don't like this hand I've been dealt. And I want to go somewhere else where, I don't know, it might be better. Okay? So like, I started doing a lot of things that was really self-destructive. I started going out with the fellas on weekends. You know, instead of studying my books and trying to be a good college student, I went out on weekends. And I started drinking more and more. Quickly, that stuff escalated into a whole myriad of different drugs. And I don't even need to go through the whole list. But I need to say that, you know, marijuana was somewhere, and then it just escalated. You know? And all I can say is that one day I got to a point where I didn't have a family anymore. I got to a point where, you know, I didn't have a home anymore. I got to a point where I didn't have bank accounts anymore. I'm talking about the outside stuff now. I got to a point where I didn't have my self-respect anymore. I got to a point where I didn't have any dignity. I got to a point where I didn't have morals and values anymore. I got to a point where integrity was like a thing of the past. You know? Well, if I told you I was going to do something today, you could almost depend on I wasn't going to do it. All right? Because that's just the way this disease affects us. Nothing matters except getting one more. All right? And early on, I didn't know what was wrong. I still didn't know what was wrong. You know, I thought surely that maybe I just had overdid it a little bit. This weekend and maybe next weekend, I'm going to try to do a little bit less. All right? I didn't know I had a disease that was going to manifest itself in 1 is too many and 1,000 is never enough. I didn't know that because I hadn't heard about this process yet. And I'm so grateful to Narcotics Anonymous because today, the newer members, and I want to say a special thank you to and welcome to all of the newer members, the people that came up here and got the basic text, the ones that don't know yet that this process works. I want to encourage you to stay. That this process can work for you like it has worked for all the rest of us. All right? It can. It really can. I want to encourage you to stay because, you see, we need you just like you need us. The only way I can keep what I have is by giving it away. You know, it's a wonderful paradox in this program of, you know, we can't keep it unless we give it away. You know, and I love that process. I love that I can't do it alone. I need you. You know, and you can't do it alone. You need me. So we can't be running nobody up out of here too easy, you know. So the key is that, you know, like I had this problem going on, and I finally got to a point where I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I mean, I had really went down quite a bit from the days when I was going to college, and I was the apple of my mother's eye. You know, and where I was showing up for church on Sunday, and I was like singing in the choir. I had really slipped down quite a few notches, you know. Now I was like falling out at the end of the night and coming to in the morning, okay? I was like using every nickel dime that I could get towards getting one more. You know, I had gotten off the alcohol ship, I had gotten off the marijuana ship, and I had gotten on to the crack ship. And I'm telling you that once I got on the crack ship, my bottom came real fast. I could not hang on that ship, all right? I don't know how y'all be I don't know how people be in addiction for 4 and 5 years on that ship. I don't understand. You know? You hear me? I mean, you got some real perseverance and stick-to-itness when you can stay clean on that ship that long. I couldn't do it. It took me maybe about 6-7 months. I was done. I had been beaten thoroughly. All right? So by the time I got off the crack ship, you know, I came to one morning on my carpet. And, you know, and that's what had happened after a while is that I didn't go to bed. You know, you just wherever you fell out at, that's cool. You know, I was glad it was a carpet, you know. And I come to, and you know, and I was in a bad state of mind. I was in a real bad state of mind because I had long since gotten sick and tired of being sick and tired. I had long since gotten to a point where I really didn't want to be the way I was being. I had long since gotten to a point where I didn't want to spend all the money on the drugs. See, I came into this process negotiating. You know, I figured maybe I could just spend half the money. Y'all show me how to get high safely, socially, you know, like them other folk do, you know. And, you know, today I understand that there is no social addicts up in here. You know, that one is too many and 1,000 is never enough, and I can never use again. And, you know, and today I really don't feel a whole lot of sorrow when I say that. I feel a lot of gratitude because, you see, I've gotten to the other side now. And then the other side is real beautiful. You know, and it's full of beautiful people just like you. Take a minute and just give ourselves a round of applause because y'all are a beautiful crowd. I love it. In case y'all haven't noticed, we got this audience participation thing going on, all right? Y'all can't go to sleep on me, all right? All right, so let's just stay awake and get this message, all right? And just in case for on some way I should get crazy and I just don't share nothing else positive, let me make sure I give you the message. We have a message. Narcotics Anonymous has a message. And the message is that an addict, any addict, can stop using, lose the desire to use, find a new way of life. All right? Is that a message? Is that a message? That's a message. That's a message. The message is hope and the promise is freedom. All right? We never have to use again. I mean, no difference what's going on with the death of loved ones, lose your job, lose your girlfriend, your boyfriend, don't matter. Children get run over by a car, I'm sorry. You don't have to use though. Okay? You don't have to use. All right? So let there be no mistake in your mind. If you mess around and use after you heard this message, it's because you wanted to use. All right? I know that can be a real controversial statement. Y'all say I said it. All right? All right, so let's move on. All I want to say is that I had this here problem and I was on the verge of giving up. I was on the verge of surrendering. And I believe that's a point that we all had to come to. And each one of y'all, when you tell your story, you're going to talk about there came a point where I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's a wonderful point. I mean, there ain't nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. You know, because when we get to the point where we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, then God can step in. All right? You know, we've done all we can do. I've made as many decisions as I think I can stand. You know, and the bottom line is that I'm not able to make anymore. So the key is that I became willing to reach out and ask for help. You know, and that's when Narcotics Anonymous came into my life. And I'm here to say that Narcotics Anonymous is a marvelous program that meets me at the level of my need. When I was a young recovering addict, it met me at the level of just staying clean. It did that wonderfully for me because it told me things like, go to 90 meetings in 90 days. It said change people, places, and things. It said what you need to do is get you a sponsor, man. Because you need to have somebody start telling you some stuff other than the stuff you're thinking. All right? It said that you need to get a home group. You needed to learn how to commit to something other than a drug. All right? It said that you needed to kind of like show up regularly. All right? And it said you needed to get involved in service. How many of y'all involved in service up in here? All right? Service is a recovery tool. And if you do service, it will not keep you clean, but it will certainly help keep you clean. It will keep you in close proximity to people who are trying to stay clean themselves and are willing to do the work. Work. Let's talk about work, all right? Because a lot of addicts don't like to work. One of our problems in recovery is that we wanted to find the easier, in an active addiction, we try to look for the easier and softer way quite often. That's all it is when you're buying drugs. You're trying to find an easy way to feel good. I want to feel good in a $5 packet. I want to feel good in $10 increments. I don't want to do the work. All right? We've got to do the work. All right? And that's what Narcotics Anonymous taught me. It said that we got to do the work. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to kind of like let you know that early on I went through a treatment facility, and I am not endorsing treatment facilities. Because I got a real sick tradition in my life, and I like to talk about traditions. Traditions are a wonderful thing. We got a brother that shared a wonderful message on the importance of traditions today, and I'd like to acknowledge that they are very important because without the we, there is no me. If there hadn't been a Narcotics Anonymous program for me to go to, I would have still been out there, or I would have been dead and dying. So I'm real grateful for the traditions that keep this fellowship alive and free. The ties that bind us together must be stronger than those that would tear us apart, or all will not be well. Okay? So I'm here to say that this is some of the stuff that I was learning in the early days. I went to this treatment facility, and I got some stuff. First and foremost, I got off the street. That was a real good move. Okay? It's real hard to stay clean if you're on the streets, if you're an addict. All right? So I got off the street. I took away that option. All right? And for 30 days, 28 days, whatever it was, it was like I was in a protected environment. All right? So this is not an endorsement, but it was my story. So I want to say that in that treatment facility, I learned some stuff. I learned a little bit about the fact that I wasn't alone. I learned that there was other people just like me. And that was really, really, really good because I was suffering from the disease of being unique. I thought that I was the only one that felt like this. I thought that I was the only one that had this problem. But I came to find out that there was a whole lot of jokers running around here crazy just like me. And that they were finding relief through a program called Narcotics Anonymous. And I was real grateful for that. And there was a lot of hope that came back into my life once I found that out. And hope is an ingredient. It's a spiritual principle that is very valuable. It's very valuable to the newer members, and it's very valuable to the older members. Because without hope, man, slowly but surely, we allow the disease to take hold again. The darkness descends on us, and we don't believe that we can get clean today or we can stay clean today. So I wanted to say that early on, I got some of this hope. And I got some of the open-mindedness that our first two steps talk about. I got some of the honesty because I heard people sharing honestly about the exact nature of what was going on in their life. This was in rehab. This was in the treatment facility. I heard jokers talking about they had homosexual experiences. I could relate. I could relate to having homosexual tendencies. I could relate to having homosexual thoughts. For a long time, I thought I was a homosexual because I had feelings. I thought feelings and being funny was like hand in hand. I'm going to tell you another aspect of this disease is ignorance. If you don't know no better, then that's reality. If I think it's true, it's true. So we really need to have good information today. And so today, I'm here to tell you that I was not a homosexual, that I had a lot of legitimate feelings that men and women do have, that I had a whole lot of tendencies toward pleasure that men and women do have. And that my sexual escapades were no more wild than maybe yours. All right? I know that kicks it out there to a real wide open field, though. Okay. We'll talk about that later. All right? Anyhow, I was learning a lot of stuff in this treatment facility. I was learning a lot of stuff. And it was like, it was all good, and I was starting to feel better. They was treating the physical. They was treating the physical because we have a disease that manifests on 3 levels. It manifests on a spiritual level. That's the total self-centeredness. It manifests on a mental level, which is the obsessiveness. The once I get a thought in my mind, I can't let go. That's a problem. You're supposed to be doing other stuff and you're thinking about this. You know, it's hard to do what you're supposed to do when you can't stop thinking about this. You know, I was down there, I ain't going, yeah, I go down there. I was down there on the beach today. I was down there on Virginia Beach, beautiful beach, right? It's a beautiful day, sunshine, walking with my friends. And there was like a lady there, man, with, it was a little bitty bikini or no bikini. I'm not real sure. And I was trying to have a conversation with my friends, but I kept going back over here to this lady with the little bitty bikini. And I'm going to tell you, obsession is a terrible thing. Yeah, it is. Okay, so I'm going to move on. And, I'm going to move on, because I don't want to bore you with the details. Read yourself. Read on. I'm going to go to a marathon meeting, and we'll talk about that later. Okay, so like all I'm trying to say is that, you know, like I had a whole lot of these problems, you know, and like I learned that we could get in touch with them, you know, through this sharing process. And I learned that, you know, there was people just like me that was getting in touch with their issues, and they were getting better. You know, and I really needed to have that for the hope. The hope factor is a big factor. So like, you know, like I really got close to some of these people, man. You know, like we was in group, you know, and we was talking to each other, and, you know, like we was sharing some deep stuff. You know, and then after the group, you know, like we go off into the little hallways on the side where y'all remember, you know, like we talk to each other like, I love you, man. It's going to be all right. And I don't never remember telling anybody I loved them and that it was going to be all right. I don't remember ever getting hugs when I was a little kid. And I don't remember anybody ever kissing me without it being a sexual act. So, you know, all of this stuff was brand new and it felt good. I need to say that it feels good, all right? And we don't need to be ashamed of that good feeling. We need to indulge in it. But once again, being addict, we'll be careful. We'll take it too far. I'll talk about that later. Anyways, what I want to say is that I found out that some of the same beautiful people that was in this treatment facility were also in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. You know, and I was real grateful to get it. And so I came to the rooms and I was a little hesitant. I was a little hesitant because I walked up to the door, you know, and like I wasn't really sure I was supposed to be there. But they had gave me in the treatment facility, they give you like short-term plan and a long-term plan. You know, y'all remember that, right? Short-term plan was like I was going to go to meetings. Like, how many meetings you going to go there? I go to 3, 4, 5. I don't know. What you want me to do? You know, you say, go to some meetings. Go to meetings, as many meetings as you can. Okay, I go to them. You know, I was kind of like going along with a lot of stuff by that point because after when you get beaten, you start agreeing to stuff. You know, you start allowing people to give you information. You start being able to kind of like be, worked with. Okay? So I was saying, yeah, okay, what you think I should do? Yeah, go to meetings? Okay, I'll go to meetings. They say, okay, what else you going to do? I said, well, like, you know, what you going to do with your wife? I said, well, you know, like, I don't know. Because by that point, you know, I had already kind of like, me and my wife was like a bad subject. Me and my wife were like a bad subject, and I really want to take some time to talk about relationships. Because relationships is a real painful area in recovery. All right? And the book says, recovery relapse, I think, says terribly painful area because we tend to place unrealistic expectations on each other. All right? Unrealistic. That's okay to have some expectations now. But they be unrealistic. And plus, I don't even want to tell you. I want you to figure out what I want you to do. All right? I want you to figure it out. All right? Read my mind. Okay? If I have to tell you, you might not be the right one, you know? Unrealistic expectation. Keep that thought in your mind. And the key is that, you know, and I was like having a lot of trouble. And they was telling me, what you going to do about the relationship? I said, well, you know, I don't know. I'm going to practice some acceptance, you know, because I already learned the jargon. I'm going to practice some acceptance, you know. I'm going to let her do what she got to do, you know, because I came through believing like, you know, my wife was as bad of an addict as I was. You know, as a matter of fact, I wanted my wife to be an addict. I wanted her to be an addict so that we could kind of like be the perfect little NA couple. Y'all see the little NA couples up in here? The he and she basic text. You know, I see them. Yeah, we got them. You know, and anyway, that's what I wanted. So we could go to meetings together, you know, and she could support me in my recovery and I could support her in hers. And she could sponsor me and I could sponsor her. No. Well, that was early recovery. All right. Anyway, I wanted my wife to be an addict, and the fact was that she wasn't having it. She wasn't having it, you know, and like, you know, so they said, you know, you're going to accept it. And I'm going to have to practice some acceptance. I had to surrender in that area many times, you know, because that's the nature of my disease is that I'll surrender today, and man, I had to surrender all over again tomorrow. You know, I had to surrender 2 or 3 times a day on the same thing. Because my disease manifests all over again and say, you know, it ain't right. She shouldn't be able to do all that. You know, and I had to kind of surrender again. So like, you know, and what I'm trying to get to is that there was a short-term plan. You know, and the short-term plan was that like I was going to go to meetings. And so I started going to meetings, and I went to this meeting that was real close to my house, so that and I wasn't driving because that was one of the things that I lost, you know, the ability to drive. New York State is kind of hard on, and they real picky about stuff like that. Anyways, so I couldn't drive, and basically I was walking, and so I picked a meeting that was close to my home so that it made no difference if I had to walk to it, I could get there. So I picked this meeting, and I showed up, and it was a big meeting, and it was like men, women, it was black and white. We're talking about back in '87. We talk about back in the days when Narcotics Anonymous was young, and it's changed a little bit, but I'm here to say that it don't have to change a lot. That same unity that I knew back in then, we can have it today. All we have to do is push aside some of the differences and focus on the similarities. If we focus on the fact that we all just addicts up in here, that it could be better for all of us, all right? All right? I'm talking about unity. In case y'all missing the hit, I'm talking about unity. That's the beauty of this process, is that it tears down barriers if we practice it. All right? Anyways, that was the kind of like environment that I ran into. And I'm telling you like stuff I came from. I want to talk about this too. I want to talk about it a little bit because I believe it's important. I came from the era when, like it was a lot of civil rights going on. All right? I come from an era when Martin Luther King was like doing his thing. I come from an era in which black and white wasn't getting along on many levels. All right? And we can relate to that because it's back again today. A lot of this is what's going on today. And I know somebody probably sitting out there saying, that's an outside issue, Roger. You can't talk about that up in here. Let me tell you something. We got a marvelous 10th tradition that says that any topic that affects my recovery is material for sharing in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. All right? All right? Now that I done got a license to talk about anything I want to, the key is that we just have to make sure that we don't try hard to be divisive. We have to try hard. We don't bring stuff up that's going to automatically divide us. There are some issues, though, that we need to deal with. And you see, that's been an issue for me all my life, is that I've had issues to deal with that I did not want to deal with. And my issues grew up and they had babies and they got to be monsters. All right? So by the time I got in recovery and started working a step in a tradition or two, and got some peace in my life, then the issues kind of like came out. All right? And I want to talk about those issues because, I got something going on right now. And they really are monstrous. But I'm here to tell you that I'm so grateful that this process is big enough to meet me at the level of my needs. And it'll make no difference what the issue is that we have. Narcotics Anonymous and the spiritual principles that are inherent in the steps and traditions are big enough to meet us at the level of our need. All right? So I was just getting a lot of this here new stuff. I was newcomer and I was getting a lot of new stuff. I was getting into the hugs, and I really liked the hugs because hugs was like, they felt good. In the streets we couldn't hug. In penitentiaries we couldn't hug because it brought on too many problems. All right? But up in here, I felt real comfortable giving up a hug. And I was hugging people that I had never hugged before due to this here racial conflict. I was hugging black people and white people. I was hugging men and women. I was hugging young and old. I was hugging people that I really had never talked to before. And I was allowing myself to be like able to kind of like coexist with the rest of the world on some level. And I liked it. Narcotics Anonymous does that for us. And I really liked it. And I'm here to say that, I heard all the suggestions. I didn't hear them at first. Because at first it's real hard to hear. At first it's real hard to hear. At first, it's like I'm just looking around. And I'm looking around. And I'm going to tell you the truth, all I could see mostly was women. I didn't really even see the men. I'm sure they were there. But all I could see was the women. I saw it. You saw it. I think that's a sexual thing. Yeah. All I could see was the women. And our women look real good in recovery. We have a beautiful bunch of women out here tonight. That's right. And as I look around, I'm real proud of the women that I see up in this program. Yeah. Carrying ourselves with dignity and all those fly hairdos. Yeah, we can do this. And it's real wonderful that we are able to, be able to show up at a hotel like this here and not tear this motherfucker up. You hear me? You hear me? while I lapse back into that old Roger. Y'all have to forgive me. But the key is that I saw a lot of things that made me want to come back. You know, and at first, a lot of times it was the women. A lot of times it was the hugs. A lot of times it was the promise of clean time, because when they give out the key tags and the chips and stuff, I wanted that. I wanted that. So I kept doing the things that I had to do, and I started taking the suggestions. And once I started taking suggestions, it was contagious, because I told you my drug of choice is more. And once I started feeling good, I wanted more of that feeling. So, you know, I started taking suggestions, and I started kind of like trying to do the 90 meetings in 90 days, and I started trying to get a sponsor. That's a real marvelous suggestion. You know, and I can't really say enough for sponsorship. I believe strongly in sponsorship, and I believe in this area you believe strongly in sponsorship, because I've heard a lot of talk about sponsorship bloodlines. I've heard a lot of talk about the family that is, you know, that's working steps and traditions together is a family that's recovering together. All right? You know, I've heard a lot about sponsorship and service. So I know that sponsorship works. I've heard a lot about the therapeutics of one addict helping another. I've heard about the ultimate weapon for recovery is another recovering addict. All right? And I know that's sponsorship. I know that's all about sponsorship. So, okay, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that I started taking some of these suggestions. And I started kind of like, you know, it took me about a year before I could get a sponsor, because I was real picky. You know, I was one of those addicts that came into the program trying to figure out what the success rate of recovery is here. You know? How well do you guys do this thing? You know? Little was I to find out that Narcotics Anonymous does it better than anybody else. Recovery don't happen nowhere like it happens in Narcotics Anonymous. And we are evidenced by all of the people we see in this room. It must be I don't know how many people is in, but it's a lot of people up in here. And we know that recovery has spread all the way across this world. You know, to other countries, other states. It's very rare for you to go anywhere where you can't have a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. So we are doing what needs to be done to fight the disease of addiction up in here. So that point made, all I was trying to say is that I started to recover. And it started to get good. And I want to say that it got good for the first 10 years. You know, first 10 years I hardly had, it wasn't very many blimps on my horoscope, on my scale of chaos. You know, it was like things was going kind of smooth. I got my wife back. I'd be happy to tell you that we worked out the difficulties with her not being an addict and me being an addict. All right? I got my kids back. You know, I started becoming a father. We can do that up in here. It's a beautiful thing, too. It's a beautiful thing to see men who never spent time with their children bringing them to meetings. It's a beautiful thing to see men who never spent time with their children showing up at school. It's a beautiful thing to see men who never spent time with their children nurturing and loving and giving them hugs and telling them that they love them. All right? And that's the kind of stuff I learned how to do, you know? And I started feeling real good. And that hole in my gut started getting smaller. Because I need to tell you that hole in our gut is the number one thing that can help us to relapse or stay clean. If the hole is big, you got problems. If the hole is small, you could stay. And it's just that simple. So the hole in my gut started getting smaller. And I need to say that, you know, I started to get recovery on many levels. You know, I started to get recovery to the point where I was starting to get some peace and serenity inside. Well, I started to be able to like look into a mirror and really like what I see. You know, and that's a real big deal. Because this addict didn't like the skin that I was in for a long time. Self-hatred was my middle name. All right? So like I'm starting to get to a point where I liked me a lot. And it was bordering on love, and all it needed to do was to kind of like keep practicing them principles, and it would have been love. All right? So I started kind of like getting with a sponsor, and I got a sponsor, and I'm happy to say that the sponsor that I got in my first year, it was the second year clean, is the sponsor that I have today. And today, I'm real grateful for that. Because today I can have one sponsor, I can have one woman, I can have one basic test, I can have one hunger, I can have one of a whole lot of things when I could never have one before. All right? And that's good. That's good. And you know it ain't easy to keep the same sponsor. I mean, sponsors catch hell, boy. They the reason why we relapse, right? I call you, you didn't call me back. You know, I hear that all the time, you know. But no, the sponsors are not the reason why we relapse. I relapse because I relapse, you know. I relapse because I wasn't taking care of my recovery. It's my responsibility to recover. It's not my sponsor's responsibility. All right? I need to say that. Sponsors take a lot of responsibility, but that's not their responsibility. All right, so what I want to say is that I got a sponsor, and I start working steps, and the steps are beautiful. And I want to talk a little bit about the steps, and I want to read a little piece about the steps because, every once in a while I need to let you know that this ain't my stuff. That I'm not up here just running a whole lot of stuff off the top of my head. A whole lot of this stuff y'all taught me. And any time when it rings true, you need to let me know. A whole lot of stuff is the stuff that is found in this book called Narcotics Anonymous. We got another beautiful piece called It Works How and Why. I suggest you get to know it. It breaks those steps and traditions down to a way. It breaks it down like you break food down for your baby. When you want your baby to eat food, they 6 months old and they just starting to take solid food. You have to break it down. That's how It Works How and Why it breaks it down for us. It breaks it down so us little babies can eat it. And we can start getting spiritually fed. And if you take that analogy and run with it, you'll start loving It Works How and Why. All right? But I want to just read this little piece, and it's on page 19. It's in the chapter How It Works, chapter 4. And it says, it is in these meetings that we are introduced to the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. It says, we learn to work the steps in the order in which they are written and to use them on a daily basis. The steps are our solution. Y'all didn't hear that? The steps are our solution. They are our survival kit. They are our defense against addiction, which is a deadly disease. That's some heavy stuff. Our steps are the principles that make our recovery possible. So when you start looking for a message, man, you need to kind of go to what the solution is. I got a hug from a brother today, and he said, brother, my name is this, and I'm living in the solution. And that's it. I'm going to remember that. Because living in the solution is what I always needed. I needed to get out of the problem and get into the solution. I needed to be able to kind of not put all the focus on what's wrong with me and start putting a little bit of the focus on what's right with me. Yeah. All right? The steps help us to do that. The steps help us to do that. The steps help me to know that, that I have some problems. And the first 3 steps, I need to do an overview on these steps because I don't know if I really want to run through every one of them. But I want to talk a little bit about the groups. There are some groups in these steps. And the first 3 are kind of like the foundation steps. They're real important. I believe with the foundation steps, we can start getting a day clean. I believe that with the steps that can start to allow us to kind of really start to kind of change enough things in our life so that we don't have to use anymore. And I believe that's really important. I told you that clean time don't equal recovery, but it's important that we get clean time. All right? So the first 3 steps are the foundation steps, and they're real important. I need to tell you that steps 4 through 9, that's a big chunk. 4 through 9 are the change and release steps. Change and release. We need to kind of change our old ideas, attitudes, and behaviors. All right? Because surely I can't stay clean if nothing changes up in here. All right? You know what happens when you take away dope from a dope fiend? You still have the fiend. Fiending for something. And most of the time, quite honestly, it's been my opinion and my experience that once we take away the drugs, relationships come next. I start fiending on who can I get in my corner? Who can I get that instant gratification with other than, that the drugs used to offer so readily? So I know today that without the drugs, we still have a problem that we need to address through the steps. All right? And so the key is that I learned to do that. 4 through 9 are the ones that kind of helped me to do that. Bunch of stuff. I started getting in touch with who I was. 4th step. Inventory. See what's in there. Assets and defects. Make a list. Sometimes it's the only one that people like to write on. But I'm here to say that in my bloodline, in the sponsorship line that I'm a part of, we write on all of them. We write on all of them because we believe that if you put it on paper, you can't get away from it. All right? You put it on paper, it just might be enough to kind of make you do some work. All right? So we believe in writing. And I believe in writing in a journal too. I believe journaling is important. Journaling is real important because before I get to the point where I can share it with my sponsor, before I get to a point where I can share it in the rooms, in the group, I can put it down on this paper and get it outside of me. Journaling is the first way I get the stuff out. And it's real important to get it out. It's real important. All right? So 4th step, do some writing. Do some work. And then when we get done with the 4th step, we be done kind of got all our defects and our assets together because, we ain't all defected up. We got some good points. And we need to kind of recognize them. Because I got depressed in my 4th step. I had so many resentments. When I started going through the resentment list, I found that I had so many resentments that I got depressed. You know, and I started writing about the exact nature of the resentments. And before I knew it, I found that I had a resentment with everybody that came in contact with me. Right. Because most of y'all didn't do what I wanted you to do. And the minute you didn't do what I wanted you to do, I had a resentment. It was easy to get a resentment with me. And it still is on any given day. You know, when a disease is manifesting in my life, I still have a problem in that area. So I need to say that resentments was a terribly painful area for me also. And I had to move on. My sponsor told me to move on, and I got to the fifth step, and I started sharing honestly. I shared the exact nature, and I need to say something about that fifth step. Is that, and somebody gonna need to tell me about time because I'm real long-winded. 90 minutes is just the beginning. We got 2 tapes? Okay. Tell me when we can get to 45. All right. Bottom line is I just want to say this about fifth step. I want to say this about fifth step. Y'all have patience with me. God ain't done with me yet. Fifth step is not all about the gory details. You know, when we say share the exact nature, we're not talking about sharing how many different ways you screwed her. We're not talking about sharing all of the gory details. We're talking about sharing the defects of character that made you do that shit. All right? We're talking about sharing the defects of character that brought out the shortcoming. All right? That's what the exact nature is. That's what I found out. And once I started finding that out, I found out that I had all kinds of patterns of behavior that kind of like covered up, that kind of like covered a wide range of my problems. So what am I saying? I'm saying that the steps were able to kind of like help me to get in touch with that stuff. I'm talking about 6 and 7 were the ones that kind of like let me start the change process. I'm talking about 7 and 8. 7 was the one where I humbly asked God to kind of like let me loose from all of this stuff. I really was starting to have a lot of problems by then because those defects of character became very manifested in my life. You know? And I noted today that I needed God's help to kind of like get rid of them. And that's the beauty of the 7th step is that humility is introduced at that time. We have been introduced to it before then, but it's really reinforced at that time. And you know, and the bottom line is that I got in touch with the fact that I needed to kind of like get rid of some guilt and shame. I'm talking about 8 and 9. 8 and 9 are real important, and you can't pass over them with a minimum of concern. I'm talking about if you don't get rid of 8 and 9, you're leaving a place in your program for relapse. All right? I'm talking about guilt and shame can take you out faster than drugs. All right? I'm talking about that old stuff that we did yesterday that keep reappearing today. All right? Okay? And it makes me feel like I'm not worthy of tomorrow. All right? I'm talking about guilt and shame. 8 and 9 can help me with that. The forgiveness step. And I need, and the number one person, I know y'all ain't, everybody ain't going to agree with this here, but the number one person I need to have on that list was me. All right? The number one person I need to have was me. If I couldn't forgive myself, how could I ever hope you would forgive me? If I couldn't forgive myself, how could I ever hope to be able to forgive you? Because forgiving goes both ways. I need to say that I got out of the, I got past the 8th and the 9th, and I got to a 10, and the 10 is a real wonderful step. The 10 is the one where we take a daily inventory. It's the one where journeying becomes a real beautiful thing in our life because it lets us know where we are at any given time. They say that if we don't have a good 10 step in our life, that our disease potentially can back us up into a corner that we can't get out of clean. Amen. All right? I mean, with multiples of years. I'm talking about 10, 11, you know? And that's why you see people who have lots of clean time, who be done stop doing the things that they did when in early recovery, they start having problems. Because they're not doing an adequate 10th step. All right? If I'm getting in touch with exactly what's going on with me, and I'm talking about stuff like, you know, why did I curse their people out? Why did I slap my old lady? I know people that's still stealing in these rooms. All right? Why did I take that piece of chewing gum? You know, I'm talking about people that, you know, I'm talking about character defects that keep manifesting over time, and I'm not in touch with them unless I'm doing a 10th step. All right? So the 10th step tells me which step I need to be working. And it puts me back to the 1st step if I have to. And it puts me in touch with the 4th step if I need to. And it puts me in touch with the 5th step if I need to. But it puts me where I need to be to get the spiritual help I need. I haven't really talked to y'all much about spirituality. But spirituality is as important to this process as bread and water is to a dying man. You need spirituality much more than you need anything else. And you know, and a lot of us up in here don't like spirituality. They said there are some of us who are intolerant of spiritual principles. We don't really think much of steps and traditions. I noted nicely when I started talking about the steps, how many people started getting up and taking a walk. I think I'll go to the bathroom now. I think I need to get me a smoke. And I understand, but I see how many of y'all stay. Because today I'm focusing on the glasses half full. That's right. I'm not focusing on the glass is half empty. The glass is half full, and I'm real grateful for that. You know, y'all give me strength just plugging into the fact that you stayed. So let me go ahead and talk about these steps and move on, because I want to tell you about where I'm at today. And I want to kind of like give this process back to you, because it's only through the we that we're able to do anything today. What I want to say is that I got to my 10th step and I learned a little bit, and I learned a little bit about Roger. The 10th through the 12th are the maintenance steps. Those are the steps that allow me to maintain whatever spiritual process I have today. Those are the steps that allow me to know that on any given day, no make no difference what go down, I don't have to use. That any given day, irregardless of if I'm experiencing fear. Because one of the areas that I have a lot of problem in is I'm afraid a lot of the time. And you see, that's another one of the feelings that us men don't like talking about. You know, I got some spiritual principles and I got some character defects that I really don't like talking about. Fear is one of them. I don't like that spiritual principle of humility all that much. Powerlessness is not my favorite one either. And I have a lot of trouble with some of them. You know, there are some of them that are just not easy. They don't feel good, you know? So I have to work real hard to practice them. I'm going to tell you the one that I had the most problem with, and maybe y'all can identify, is willingness. I have a lot of trouble with willingness. Sometimes I know what the right thing is to do, and I'm just plain not willing. Can anybody relate to not being willing to do what you know is the right thing to do? All right? Let me put a little hit out there what I do. When I have trouble doing the things I need to do, I have to pray and ask for help from a power greater than myself. And I choose to call him God. And he is always there. He ain't never let me down, and that's part of my spiritual program. I'm not a real religious person, though I grew up in church. And I have a lot of dogma. I'm not a real religious person, and that's not to say that I don't think religion has a place in this process, because I do. But I also think education has a place, and I also think a lot of those other institutions have a place. But this is Narcotics Anonymous, and this is a spiritual program, and it's based on spiritual principles, and that's why I'm talking about spiritual principles, all right? I think it's real important. It's real important. So let me move on. I'm talking about the 11th step, and that's the step that kind of like gave me the permission to kind of like cuddle up to my higher power. You know, I mean, like I had gotten to a point where I was practicing some principles. I had gotten to a point where I had moved some of the character defects out of the way. You know, I wasn't like going off on my girlfriend all the time, my wife all the time. I had gotten to a point where I wasn't beating the kids all the time. I had learned a new way of dealing with the kids, discipline. You know, I had learned how to kind of like show up at meetings and become a power of example, or an example of the power. You know, because there is a power that's running through these rooms, and that keeps us. And all I wanted to say was, by that time, I wanted more of what the steps had given me. So I practiced prayer and meditation. And you can meditate any way you want to, but I started reading the daily meditation readings. That was one of my forms of meditation, and I still do it today. And when I would read it, what I would do is I would meditate or think about some of the topics that they brought up. Because quite often I could use that stuff in my daily life in the here and now. All right? So that became one of my forms of meditation. And I started getting centered. And one of the gifts, we talk about one promise, many gifts. One of the gifts of meditation was emotional balance. You know, how many of us up in here have some problems emotionally? Talking about on a roller coaster. Okay? I'm talking about meditation works. I'll endorse that one. Meditation works. So, you know, if you want to talk about more about that, you can catch me after this. Because the bottom line is that it works. Prayer and meditation. Let me talk to you, God, and let me listen for you to talk to me. You know, and a whole lot of times God spoke to me through you. All right? So if any of y'all looking for the burning bush, I was. If any of y'all looking for the burning bush, it might not be like that. God may be speaking through other people. He may be speaking through the literature. He may be speaking through the addict that still suffers. So I need to say that that's one of the ways that God spoke to me. And finally, I got to the 12th step. And the 12th step was a marvelous step to get to, because it allowed me to kind of like know what my purpose in life was. It let me know what I was here to do. It said, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. I had some spiritual awakenings by this time. I knew that I was a worthwhile person. I liked me. As a matter of fact, by this time, I was starting to walk around saying, I'm a good man. I'm a real good man. I had always been a good man. I heard somebody say this. I had always been a good man, but I didn't know how to act like a good man. All right? I didn't know how to carry myself like a good man. But the good man was in there. He was in there. He was just waiting to get out. And Narcotics Anonymous helped me to let him out. All right? So I'm trying to say that by the 12th step, I had these kind of awakenings, and I was ready to carry the message. I was ready to carry the message to addicts that still suffer. I was ready to also, and this is the part that I want to get into my drama, I was able to also start trying to practice these principles in all my affairs. And you know, that's a tall order. I don't know if any of y'all has ever tried to practice all these principles in all your affairs. Because that's some hard stuff to do. Okay? Because I was like really okay with like practicing these principles with the disease of addiction. You know, I can stop using drugs, okay? But I kind of want to keep the relationship, God. I'm going to work on the relationship and I'm going to control that. You know, I'm going to have that the way I want it. You know, it don't work. It don't work. So that's when my drama kicks in, and I'm going to share this here and then I'm going to quit. About my time, right? All right. So I'm going to share this and I'm going to quit. I'm going to tell you about my drama. My drama is that, like, you know, after like 10, 11 years, you know, my wife kind of like came to me and she kind of like revealed some things to me. She kind of like, this is the same woman that when the motivation for me coming into recovery was her calling the police and having them escort me out of my own home. All right? That was one of the motivations. I didn't tell you about that. I have a way of glossing over the areas I don't like talking about. Police escort me out. Me and police don't have no good relationship still. Never did since that day. So they escorted me out, and I had a resentment. And I had a resentment, but you know, like I worked past it. And when I came into recovery, I kind of like begged my way back. I had my mom kind of like do some things to kind of like encourage my wife to kind of like give me another chance. I told her, I said, you know, honey, this is a new way of life. And if you give me another chance, I'll be the man you wanted me to be. I don't know if any of y'all women ever heard that. But I'll be the man you want me to be. You know, and I wanted to be that man. Let me say that. Because there's a part of me that always wanted to be that man. You know, and I just didn't know how to be that man. But I believed through Narcotics Anonymous that I could be that man. So a lot of things started happening, and I started changing, and I started getting better, and on some level I believed that I had become that man. You know, because in the rooms I was doing service work, and I was a service junkie. Sometimes service work can be like a good thing, and sometimes it can be a bad thing. Sometimes service work can be like an excuse for me not to work on my home life. All right? I don't know if anybody can relate to that. I'm going to say it again, though, just in case you didn't hear. I'm going to say that sometimes when we're running to and fro, doing this and that, and everybody's telling us what a great guy we are, that feels better than home do. All right? Sometimes the issues that I have at home, they pale by comparison. Sometimes I don't feel like working on none of that stuff. All right? So, like, you know, like I started having some drama. You know, because my wife stepped to me and she said some stuff like, you know, even though you are this great recovering addict and you just celebrated 11 years, I'm not happy. I knew it was going to get worse before it got better when she said that. She said, not only am I not happy, and this was what y'all women say, and I don't really like it, but she said it. She said, I'm no longer in love with you. What she said, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. Yeah. That's it. That's it. I don't know what y'all mean by that. I think it's kind of like a left-handed way to say, I don't like you no more. All right? But I want to let you down easy. So I knew it was going to get worse. You know, I knew it was going to get worse, so I was listening intently by the time, but it was like a sinking feeling. And I remember the sinking feeling from the days in which I was using, you know, and like, you know, and the dope man was saying, there ain't no more. You know, and I knew that I was going to have to kind of like go find another dope dealer or something. You know, and I had that same sinking feeling. You know, it's like my world was coming to an end kind of feeling. You know, and I'm here to tell you that men have feelings. I don't think y'all women really believe we have feelings, because a whole lot of time we go through a lot of masks and faces and changes like we don't. But we have feelings. You know, and it really hurt me real bad when she said that. You know, and it wasn't like I didn't deserve it now. Don't get me wrong. You know, because the bottom line was I didn't work real hard on that relationship. I didn't work real hard. You know what I worked hard on? I worked real hard on bringing the bacon. Okay? You know, I worked real hard on doing what Gary was talking about last night. I worked real hard on like sexing her up real good. All right? You know, I even made sure she got hers before I got mine. How about that? You know, I'm a real good man. All right? And I thought that was enough. But I neglected to remember that she's got a whole emotional side to her life and a spirit to her life that needs to be nurtured too. All right? And you see, I don't know much about that. I'm not real good in that area because I still have a lot of self-centeredness there. I need to say that intimacy is not one of my strong points. I need to say that I like people to kind of like meet me at the level of my needs, but I'm not real good at meeting you at the level of yours. Okay? And this is a very painful area for this man. This good man who wants to be a good man. In this area, just like all the rest of them. So let me tell you the rest of the story. Let me go on. Because what I'm here to tell you is that she told me she wanted a divorce. She wasn't talking about one more time. Because I was trying to negotiate for just one more. Just let me have one more chance. I'll make it worth your while. She said, no. She said, I wasted enough time. We're talking about how many years? We're talking about 17 years of marriage. We're talking about we had the house. We had the car, 2 cars. She got her car, new car. I got a new car. And we all got new cars. We got babies that done growed up. They gone. We got 2 more recovery babies between us. We got the life of Riley, I thought. But the bottom line was it wasn't happening. And I really couldn't understand why she was putting me through all this. Because my self-center stood up and said, you know, I don't understand. All right? So what I'm here to say is that right now I'm going through this drama where she's over there and I'm over here. You know, and some of the most painful parts of my life is when I go to visit my daughters and I have to tell them goodbye. All right? I got 2 lovely daughters. I love them girls. You know? And I'm a father that learned how to be a father with them girls. You know? And they love me. Let me tell you how much they love me. Even when I treat them badly. I'm here to tell you that I treat them badly sometimes. Because I'm not all there. They still love me anyways. That's the way kids are. They love me anyways. And they are my heart, and they motivate me to be the best man I can be and the best father I can be. And I keep trying. I pray to God, God, help me in that area. Help me in that area. Help me not to holler at them all the time, God. Help me not to kind of like hurt their little feelings, God. Help me not to do the harm to them like it was done to me, God. Help me to break the cycle somewhere down the line here, okay? Okay, so like I'm talking about, it hurts me when I have to walk away from my house and my daughters and my wife and my yard. And I have to go to my little apartment on across town, all right? And that's the drama that I'm living today. But I want to kind of like leave this message with you that even though you may be in some drama like that, even though it may hurt tremendously to, you know, to go through those kind of feelings, that we don't have to use no matter what. All right? We don't have to use no matter what. All right? My recovery has been kicked to another level. I know today that I can no longer play around with these steps and these traditions. I've got to practice them in all my affairs. And that's where that 12th step comes in at. I've got to stop playing with God. I've got to stop playing with my wife. I've got to stop playing with these principles. Because if I don't embrace these principles with all the strength in my arms and my legs, the disease will win. With 11 years, it will win. It'll back me up into a corner that I can't get out of clean. All right? And I'm here to say if it can happen for me, it can happen for you. So if any of y'all in any of those tight spaces where you got a reservation, where you're kind of like, you know, allowing the principles to work in some areas, but you're not allowing it to work in all areas. Like if you're like holding back on some of the recovery that's going on in your life, I'm here to say that you don't need to do it no more. You need to surrender today. Surrender today, right here, right now, and don't do it no more. Make a decision that you're going to pray to God and ask Him to help you in all your affairs. Because that's what I have to do on a daily basis. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. Y'all invite me back next year and I'll tell you. All right? I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm here to tell you that me and my wife have been talking. We have been talking. That's what I've been doing. I've been keep coming back. And I started reapplying myself to the basics. I started reapplying myself to the basics because that's what happens when you get crisis in your life. You know, you'll work some steps in. You know them steps they got dust on them over there in the corner? Where is they? You know, and I started pulling them out. I started reading my basic text again. Prayer and meditation took on a new meaning. You know, I started calling my sponsor on a much more regular basis. All right? I live on a street where there's whores and prostitutes walking up and down the street. All the time? Okay. Okay. All I need to say is that I live in a street where there's whores and prostitutes walking up and down, so I'm challenged to either recover or die. And all I can say is that today I'm trying to recover. Through this process, Narcotics Anonymous. You don't know it, you better tell somebody. Narcotics Anonymous, it works. It's a message of hope. It's the promise of freedom. It's working in my life at 11 years clean. I got a lot of drama going on right now, but I'm here sharing a message of hope that you don't have to use nothing. You don't have to use anger. You don't have to use attitudes, ideas, and behavior. You certainly don't have to use drugs. I'm an addict. My name is Roger. Thanks for letting me share.